Radio check. Loud and clear.
KSL Sports and KSL Podcast present Mode Push, an American view of F1, starting now.
I'm stuck. He's looking good. Look at his honestly.
I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted.
I enjoyed this so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody, welcome on in. It's another edition of Mode Push, the American view of F1, a podcast brought to you by KSL Sports, KSL Podcasts. Thanks for being with us. Alex Kirry, my co-host of the program, as always. Dan Jimenez on the show here with us. Dan, what's up, man? How are the holidays, dude?
Oh, it's been great. Relaxing. Just perfect.
Now, you're... I'm in the studio all the time because it's my job. You do extra. This is an extra. Does it feel like a job to you coming and doing the F1 podcast?
No, this is all fun.
You get to drive up and go, oh, honey, I got to. You let that AMG engine kind of soothe your aches on the way up to Salt Lake.
I drive the exact speed limit, not a mile over on the way up.
Have you gotten a ticket in that car yet? Have you been pulled over?
This one, no.
The
last ticket I got was in my last AMG. So,
what was the miles per hour?
It was not. I
wasn't crazy.
No, I got like a 45 and a 35.
But that's the thing is that like people see a wagon and they don't go, "You son of a," they're like that's a.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those sneaky fast cars.
Sneaky fast. That's right.
Somebody pulls up in their Corvette and then you're next to them at the light. They don't know they're going to get smoked.
Yeah.
They're not aware.
Yeah, and I don't often do that, but sometimes.
You do?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
I got an 81 in a 55.
Ooh, there you go.
Going up a hill about a year ago because I have the e-tron, the electric car.
Yeah.
And that's
that
hard
go.
It's hard not to push the gas down. And you don't know you're going that fast. And the UHP guy was not. I didn't say anything. It was one of those things where I just handed the license and the registration as soon as he walked up.
You're like, I know.
and it was the biggest ticket. But I remember thinking, there are. I don't know. You don't know sometimes you're going that fast.
Yeah. I don't know what the statute of limitations is on admitting anything. Yeah, so I might.
You're not going to get it. No one's going to write you a speeding ticket post.
When I bought my first AMG wagon, I picked it up in Idaho and drove it home. Shortly after my fourth kid was born, and so I was like trying to get home in a quick manner.
Yeah.
And somewhere between the Idaho-Utah border, north of Tremont and
the Snowville area,
long stretch, nobody around. The only person I'm going to hurt is myself. I took it to the governor limit.
There's a governed number on that car.
Yeah, 135.
Wow.
Which was really stupid to do in a car that I hadn't really inspected very closely myself. So I don't recommend doing that.
I think the Audi is governed at 110.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. The current one, if I do the tune and takes the governor off, I think that it's like 185.
Yeah. That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I'm not going to do that unless at a racetrack.
Think about how dumb you are. When I was a teenager, we did such stupid crap in cars. And my parents didn't have insane cars. We had, lots of kids. We had a Suburban and a Nissan Maxima,
Yeah.
But I had a friend who his parents had that, the Jeep with the 5.9 liter engine, that Hemi on it. It wasn't a Hemi at that point, but I think, something similar, some high output with those beefy glass pack, kind of exhausts on them. And we were on the back roads of Idaho near Priest Lake, and I think doing 130 in an SUV. Dude, in an SUV that for sure death could have come at any moment. We were such freaking idiots.
Yeah.
So there's your PSA, kids. Don't do dumb stuff.
We're not endorsing our prior
Don't do dumb stuff.
Actions.
Yeah, and it was funny now. It's like if I see my kid and I'm like, he's like, can I put a chip in my electric scooter to go 17 miles an hour? I was like, no, you cannot. Absolutely not. That's inappropriate. All right. Dan, it's that weird time of year. We're getting to this is our final episode of the 2022 year. We're going to kick off 2023. It's been a fun time. We're getting our feet wet on this, on the F1 podcast, and it's been fun to kind of jump in and just talk about this, sport that I'm relatively new at just in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's something you followed for a long time. It's been fun to jump in and get to know you a lot more and to get to know the sport a lot more. I love the breakdowns on the engineering side of things. I learn a ton every week from you, so it's been really, really fun to get started already with this thing. We're on episode 22 already of the of the episode. Time flies, and I don't know how much better we've gotten at it, but we certainly are doing it. Most podcasts that are F1 related are not. This is when they take their big break, And I think for us, we were both like, "Hey, man, we got to do something here."
Not us. No.
I wanted to make sure and bring something up that you brought my attention to, and that was they had the massively pretentious FIA Formula One World Championship Awards where it's just a bunch of people who are already rich showing up in their black and white tie affairs and handing out awards to one another. And the champion of the constructors, trophy was, of course, Red Bull. And up to the stage walks Christian Horner. And interestingly enough, I'm going to mess it up. Ben Sulayem, who's the FIA president, took exception to something that it was one of the more awkward exchanges. And if we're good at anything, Dan, it's bringing up awkward exchanges. And you showed this one to me, and I thought, we got to bring this one up. This is on the stage where obviously Christian always has an angle. Christian Horner, yes. the team principal for Red Bull, always has an angle. He's always saying so. He's not short on opinions. And, the boss of the FIA wasn't going to let that slip. And so here's what was said on the stage as he was awarded the constructors' title and the trophy.
Championship in Japan, even though there was a bit of confusion over the points there, but thankfully Max won it early and he saw it. And then the next weekend, the day after he passed, we managed to win this trophy. So it's a very special one.
Thank you, Christian. First of all, you deserve the win, if it's the manufacturer or Max. Secondly, you said about Detroit. I mean, I drove with a Red Bull sponsorship in my last championship. And one thing you said about Japan, you said was controversial. No. The FIA was blamed for the points, but it was not the FIA which made the rules. It was the teams who made the rules, and we were implementing it. So thank you for the...
Okay, guys.
Yes, you see?
Let's stay focused.
No. To me, it's very, very clear about the FIA, and we do that. So thank you very much. He is right. They deserve the win. Everyone who wins deserves it.
Wow. It's so cringy.
So awkward.
It's amazing, though, too, because this is the thing that I think a lot of folks aren't familiar with. Like, the FIA is the governing body over motorsport, right? Mm-hmm. So they do all of it, right? They have kind of they're kind of over all the racing that is sanctioned across Europe. Anything big and important when it comes to motor racing across
countries,
the countries. Then that's it. I mean, we don't know anything about the FIA here because no American sport is governed by that. But it's like the ego of Roger Goodell from the NFL standing on the stage with Jerry Jones.
Oh, and like the Bernie Ecclestone era too, like times 10. Like it's hard to go back and replay everything like what Bernie Ecclestone was to the FIA compared to Roger Goodell or David Stern or these guys. Like as egotistical, full of themselves, power hungry as those guys, if not more.
It's a wild thing to watch. So in the end, I don't think. They can go back and forth and argue about whether. What's weird is it's not really an argument. Like, who cares? At this point, Christian bringing it up on the stage with the trophy in his hand is as dumb as the FIA president, saying, I want to clear something up. Like, come on, dude. Like, and I think that it was the MC's like, anyway, guys, thank you so much. Like, I'm like, I have a giant smile on my face when that stuff happens because I love that type of cringy stuff because Christian Horner just says whatever he wants. Yeah. And he kind of gets away with it. And he's not going. No one's going to question him on it. But timing wise, couldn't have been as weird. It couldn't have gotten worse for those guys. But in an award ceremony, no less. That's the way it goes, of course. So as we go into we're in the off season. This is the equivalent of like the dead time for these guys who are going in But we weren't able to talk about some of the changes that happened with some of these team principals and what that might do, what that could affect going forward here. So what have we seen change-wise of the team bosses, and what do you see happening in 2023 with some of these guys being the heads of new teams?
Yeah, so I think in our last episode we talked at length about Matteo Binotto, and getting released from Ferrari, or technically resigning, but forcefully being resigned from Ferrari, and Ferrari saying, we're not going to have any update until January. And then they went ahead and announced in December, right before Christmas, that Freddie Vasseur from Alfa Romeo, who we all speculated was the leading candidate, had been hired, which I think is a great pick. I think not only has he come experienced with, I think, a temperament and a personality that might be able to crack down more on the performance of the team, but he also has a close relationship with Charles Leclerc. So I think that that's going to be good for Charles, who's really, I think, the one driving the team. I think he's the golden boy for the franchise, and they're going to put into that team principal position somebody that he likes, and I think they found that with Fred Vasseur.
It was kind of interesting too, because Jost Capito, the team principal for Williams, I was pretty shocked to see that he was. I mean, he's been making progress. I think. I mean, I think we look at Williams and our expectations are pretty low, but they've had as much success as we've seen them have in the last 3 or 4 years, and he seemed like a very as the technical director, as like the team principal, he was as good as anybody leading that team. I mean, they have this Dorleton, Capital or whatever, who run it, this American, private equity firm who's throwing a bunch of money at this, but he's stepping aside for this season. It feels like it was the same type of thing where he's been retired for him. I mean, like, this is the top of the sport. When you talk about guys who have been bosses of teams, F1 is the top of the sport, and so it was a shock to me for Jost to be ousted, I guess.
Yes, I had the same exact feeling. I compared to the era before with Claire Williams, that era felt like the team was just lost.
Yes,
they just didn't know what to try next. But I thought this last year there was a lot of step forward. They scored points with all three drivers, including DeVries that stepped in, and it was a surprise that he either chose to leave or got ousted. So who's going to? That's the only remaining open seat right now in terms of a team principal.
Is Alfa Romeo figured out then too?
Sorry, that one as well.
I think those two teams, Williams,
those are the two. Yes, you're right.
No team principal, which is a weird time to do it. Like, you better figure it out here in the next month and a half, because you have winter testing coming up in February.
Alfa Romeo, they hired Andres Seidel from McLaren to be the new CEO, but he's not the team principal, which is interesting that he's kind of taken, I guess, that step up from being a team principal to a CEO.
He certainly could kind of fill the boots for a minute, while they get things going.
Yeah, and he had previously worked in the World Endurance Championship, another FIA-regulated motorsport, for Porsche. And dominated there, and so he has that prior relationship with that Volkswagen group. So it makes sense that he's coming back to that group, what's going to be Audi, with enough lead time to be able to kind of implement all the changes that need to be made before they make that switch. So I think that makes sense. But yes, no team principal there yet. So yeah, I think that it was just maybe a bit surprising. Seeing all of these changes happening at the same time. McLaren is promoting somebody from within to be the team principal.
Stella,
so those are kind of the faces we're going to see around, and it'll be interesting to see where these the two open seats go to. I think on the Williams side, there's interesting candidates. Obviously, does Matteo Binotto want to stay a team principal? Would you see Alfa Romeo or Williams as too much of a step back or too much of a demotion? Or I think it would be, we might be approaching the era where a former Formula One driver or champion takes a team principal role. There's rumors about Jenson Button being a possible candidate for that Williams team principal role. So
it's kind of interesting in like American sports, when a guy who was relatively successful in the sport takes over at head coach, like that actually almost is like a knock, right? I mean, the things that go into team principal, it's a different set of skills.
Yeah.
It's almost like they have to be almost an engineer first. Not really, but I mean, like, because Christian Horner and And you think of a Toto Wolff. Those guys are race-minded guys, But they also, it's very similar. Like, they were not super successful. Like, they were like pretty good in these lower tiered things, but they were never, these amazing F1 drivers. Which Jenson Button wasn't. I guess he's not an amazing F1 driver either. I guess, but he certainly has a history in the sport, and he certainly has been a driver.
He's a champion. Yeah.
He's a champion, and so then you go, okay. Do you want a guy coming in who's a former world champion coming in and doesn't have any experience doing this, but just say, yeah, he's been around a team before. Let's make it a team principal right off the bat. It seems weird.
Yeah, it's a big stretch. The job of a team principal in Formula One is just very comprehensive, from talent management to being able to do the PR side of it. Like, you see Toto and Christian, they're the face of those teams almost as much or even more than the drivers at times. And so you just have to have, like you said, a totally different skill set than would have made you either a great engineer or a good driver. So it's an experiment I'd like to see. I can't recall recently any of the major teams having a team principal that was predominantly a driver for their career.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the move would be. Who do you think, who's the pressure going to be on the most? If you're a Ferrari, you're like automatically kind of the pressure team. But who maybe has the most development to go? Because even if you want to say, hey, Ferrari, expectations are always high for, the Scuderia, you've got a new team principal who I think expects greatness, right? He understands what the Ferrari standard is. But you also don't have a lot of development to do. And so your car is actually pretty darn good. There have been a lot of things on the side of reliability that might be an issue, but also on the side of execution of your plan as a team. But who has the furthest to go in terms of getting their car right to be able to actually compete? Because putting a machine on the road that is going to be a lap down every race is not where anybody wants to be. So who has the most it strikes against them in terms of trying to get this thing done?
The first one that comes to mind for me is McLaren. Just with the expectation they need to be performing much better than they did this past year, and with a new team principal in place with Andrea Stella. And then I also think about Haas. This is going to be their first year where they have this new sponsor in place that's going to allow them to reportedly spend to the cost cap, and they need to continue to show performance. I mean, Gene Haas is still probably putting a lot of money into that, and the sponsorship helps, but it is not a guarantee that Haas is still on the grid in 5 years. I think that's if any team is going to fold, I think it's likely going to be them if they don't find more success quick.
Is there an American manufacturer that would want to get involved? I mean, it seems like when you say, because Ford, GM, they've got the capital to be able to say, we want to do this. We have the resources to do it. We have the facilities to be able to kind of do this. But headquartering an F1 team in America is freaking hard.
It's hard.
Haas is trying to do it, and it's a difficult thing to do. And Haas has also been, on the low end of performance, obviously. But in my mind, if Haas folds, if there's not an American team for a new American audience to kind of jump onto, I think it's not as easy to get people involved. When you have 3 races in America like you're going to have next year, if you don't have any American racers or American teams in the future, if Logan Sargent doesn't last that long, or if or whoever the next one single, it's always just a one-off American name that might be in the mix a little bit here and there. Is there a possibility that a Ford or a GM would ever want to get into the world of F1 racing?
I think it makes the most sense for Ford. They have a current relationship with Gene Haas on the NASCAR side. They're the brand that Haas Stewart Racing runs under NASCAR, and so and then also Ford really leans into, I think, the marketing aspect of racing and how that translates to their main business, and so I think it makes the most sense for them or GM. And you got to think that everyone else is seeing the growth in the U.S. for F1 in terms of the number of the races, a new full-time driver, and so it's just a missed opportunity. I think they can't. I don't think Ford can look at F1 and be like, oh, that doesn't really appeal to our customer base. They, guys buying F-150s don't watch F1. I don't think you could have said that 5 years ago, but I don't think you say that now. And so I think I would be surprised if those conversations aren't already happening.
An Asian manufacturer not being involved seems weird too. racing is in the DNA of Japan. I think you would. I think some of these, and we talked about this before. Some of the South Korean, manufacturers. Mm-hmm. How is it that they wouldn't want to be involved in trying to be and put their name on? If you have your name on the back of a car that is going across the finish line on a podium, that's a huge deal for that. I mean, it's a massive in the car industry. It's almost like these guys have these massive pissing matches on these race courses, right? Where it's like, hey, I mean, Alpine Renault is the state. Vehicle of France and Mercedes is Germany, Ferrari is Italy. I mean, it's got these crazy things tied to it, and so image wise, there might be a little bit of a stretch because I don't, trying to get Americans to get off of something like to kind of come away from NASCAR a little bit to get involved in F1 is probably what you're asking is a group of people who are already motor racing fans getting involved in another type of motor racing. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where the new audience totally comes from, but I think an American team or a brand new team, these guys have to carve out a way to get. I mean, Williams I don't know how long that's going to last, right? Yeah. I don't know how long Haas is going to last. And some of these teams just we wonder how long they're going to be on the grid if they're not one of these big 4 or 5 who have their names and a lot of money behind their backing. Yeah,
I could see a future where all 10 teams on the grid end up being tightly associated and supported by a manufacturer. And from the Asian market, I think the Hyundai or Kia brands are really interesting from South Korea, but Toyota for a really long time was in F1, and the U.S. market is really big for Toyota. TRD, Toyota Racing Development, is based in California, and they produce, all the Toyotas that you drive here in the U.S., vast majority are produced here in the U.S. And so I think they look at the U.S. market as maybe their top market. And I think that it would make sense for Toyota to take a look at it as well.
I was reading an article this week about how they're one of the manufacturers who are a little bit skeptical still on a full EV takeover. They're if you notice too, Toyota doesn't have, these full electric models that everybody else seems to be rolling out, in crazy fashion. And so that makes sense when they say we don't know if the full electric, push is going to stick forever.
Mm-hmm. They're more about hybrid.
Which in my mind, I go, hey, guess what that engine is in F1? It's a hybrid, 6-cylinder turbo. It's easy for them to get. And Toyota is as big a brand as any of these other ones that we just put out there in terms of, how many cars they put out every year. So, and the money that they have backing it as well. So going into winter testing, that's going to be a February, mid to late February kind of deal here. What are teams doing right now? What is a driver doing right now? Are they just sitting on a boat in Monte Carlo and soaking up the rays, or is that just an idealized thought of it? Because these guys all live in Monte Carlo, and they don't have to pay taxes, or as they like to put it, we're centralized in Europe, and so it's an easy way to get around. So what is a driver doing right now to prep for the 2023 season that's around the corner here?
Yeah, I think it depends on the driver. I think the more experienced veterans are just enjoying their time off. I think I saw Valtteri Bottas's vacation in New Zealand this week.
That's a guy who's not going to
he's not spending a lot of time in the simulator.
Right. If the Iceman was still on the grid, he also would not be caring about what his workout plan was.
Yeah, Iceman would be doing a polar bear dive in northern Finland.
No one would even know he was where he was.
Yeah. And then, so I think if you're the younger guys, especially the new drivers, you're just spending a lot of time in the simulator, and that's kind of the expectation too for those more junior drivers is they're going to be doing the development on the car. And it's crazy to think, but the drivers and the teams are doing actual development on the car in the simulation world, right? So they'll get the driver in there, load the setup to the computer, and then take a lap around Silverstone and give us your feedback. What did you feel there? What was different from the last change? Okay, we're going to change a couple of other things. And this is all just happening in the simulator. And then those changes will then translate into the real world based on what they choose to develop in terms of suspension design, and a lot of stuff. The CFD and wind tunnel time is all regulated by the FIA, so there's only a certain amount of time that each team can do that.
How does that work?
Yeah,
there's like a seal on the door. Like how do they? Like I don't know. Because some of these teams own the actual.
Yeah,
or they share
their
the
own wind tunnels. Yeah,
and so it just seems wild that it would be under surveillance all the time. It's like a Ring doorbell on the.
That is a great question. We should do some more research on. I had the same question about even the cost cap, and the audits and how do they, make sure that everything is copacetic. So lots of development going on in the virtual world right now, and similar. The wind tunnel time from like the last half of the season is probably what's being most influential on the design for their car for next year. It just takes a lot of time to work through all of that and then actually manufacture these bodies. So I saw Mercedes posted a video of them starting up their 2023 car. So engine development is well along its way. They've these motors are getting really close for kind of production ready status. So I think a lot of teams got an earlier start on development. I saw Williams said that halfway through the year when they knew that they were going to be in 10th or 9th and they weren't really fighting for anything better.
They turned their sights to 2023.
They stopped all development on 2022 and they're like, hey, on to next year. So some teams are well ahead on this and are probably just chomping at the bit to get on the circuit there in Bahrain for winter testing.
Well, we're familiar with that in American sports, right? When a team goes, anyway, we're going to start this guy at quarterback. You've never heard of him, and neither have we, and we don't care because we actually want to do worse now.
Yeah.
We're moving on to 2023. Now, there's no version of the good thing is in F1, the incentive is if you perform better, you get more money. Mm-hmm. And that more money allows you to have a little bit more flexibility, but you do get more simulator time, more wind tunnel
and CFD
if
time.
You're not if you are further down the table, and so there's some incentive there for guys to shut it down. I think at the end of the year we were talking about Ferrari going,
tanking.
Do we want to maybe? It's nice to be second, but it would also be nice to get 16 more hours of that wind tunnel, to try to figure that out. We haven't figured out what our plan is for the F1 race coming to Las Vegas.
Oh, I have a new option.
I know, and that's what I was going to bring up. What we do know is what's not going to happen for you and I. And that is the Formula One Las Vegas Grand Prix, brought to you by Caesars Entertainment, the Emperor Package.
Emperor. I was trying to remember what the name was.
The Emperor Package. It sounds borderline inappropriate. I'll take the Emperor's Package, please. What does that include? First of all, roll out the price for us here, Dan.
$5 million.
$5 million.
5 million smackers, yeah.
What is $5 million? Now, initially they rolled out like a low level, what I would assume would be like, I don't know, a senator's package. It's not as good as the Emperor's package, which was at $1 million. The Emperor package at $5 million. This is a 5-night stay, so it's
oh my gosh.
$1 million a night. Okay, but that's not just for you get the Nobu Sky Villa at the Nobu Hotel at Caesars Palace. Okay, the villa is 10,000 square feet. Okay. It's a 3-bedroom, 4,700 square foot terrace. It's a 3-bedroom, apartment / house. If it's 10,000 square feet, you're talking. I mean, that's an amazing amount of house, or whatever this, a penthouse. A 4,700 square foot terrace that's 140 feet above the Las Vegas Strip, and it provides space for 75 people to view.
75.
Now, hey, could you make some money on this? Now, you pay the $5 million. If everybody has to pay $250,000 to be up there, could we?
Yeah, it sounds like a business opportunity.
Or even $100,000 a piece, right? Okay, so views of the Grand Prix circuit is promised along the Las Vegas Boulevard, I hope. But at 140 feet, you're kind of squinting at the circuit.
You're
there,
not really
Dan.
seeing a lot. You're probably watching it on the TV up in the suite.
Well, here's those 75 people who are on the terrace. They're not actually in your little private club, okay? That is reserved for you and 10 other people who get the Paddock Club passes to be down there.
To be down.
Listen, that's the one you want. That's the highest level of VIP treatment if you're in the Paddock Club.
Yeah, getting the Paddock.
Go down there. But the villa offers 24/7 butler service, which I always think is intriguing. Like, what does that mean? At any moment, you call up and go, "Sandwich now," or I wouldn't know what to do with a butler for 24/7. Outdoor Zen garden with a Japanese onsen tub, a media room, a billiards table, full bar, outdoor kitchen, sauna, and private spa treatment as well. during your stay. None of it sounding like it's worth $5 million.
No, there's something about the juxtaposition of a Zen garden and an F1 race on the Las Vegas Strip that just doesn't work.
Hey, can you turn it down? I'm in the Zen garden.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you know this, but the $5 million does include all of the food and beverages.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, well, there you go. And now it starts to make sense. I'm trying to think who gets that. Like,
no, I don't.
Who is like
nobody on this
Who
continent.
do you see? Yeah, probably not nobody on this continent. I think you're right.
It's going to be, because that's a bad look for a CEO of a company, a billionaire, to even, let's say you think about guys who it'd be chump change to do it. Your Elon Musks. Pick your poison on a CEO of one of these, big tech companies, things like that are worth billions. But maybe like a Steve Ballmer type guy where he's just like, hey, man, let's do it. Now, you do get, for the entire stay, a personal driver and a Rolls Royce.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, you don't get to keep the Rolls Royce at the end of it.
No,
now, that would be... But that would be actually...
Are you going to run to Costco in the Rolls Royce? Like, where are you going in a car in Vegas?
6 guests can get inside the... yeah. But it's the private treatment room that is also available for you to get your massage at 24/7. Is that the same butler guy who's helping you out? Or
yeah,
is
the
it
butler. Oh, I don't know. A Las Vegas massage. That sounds sketchy.
Doesn't seem... I know. No, this is 100%. This is a sheik is buying this, right?
Yeah. I'm
Saudi
trying to think,
Prince.
who are the famous people that you see in the paddock that actually like F1? Like Shaq actually likes F1, but I don't see Shaq doing something like that.
Shaq is kind of notoriously a saver too. Like he's
a savvy guy. Yeah.
He's a guy who promotes his own pizza at Papa John's. Like, I'm not saying he's living on the cheap, because I've also seen his house in Orlando and it's 28,000 square feet. And so there's that side of it. But paying $5 million for a weekend doesn't seem like a good return in value. It's a power play by the elite of the elite of the elite. It's the guys who bought $1 million package to go to the World Cup, in Qatar, and have to deal with that whole thing. Which, by the way, that whole thing at the beginning of the episode when we were talking about the FIA's president, going, "Oh, you guys did this, and this is," it stinks of some of the things that we've seen with the World Cup, and just kind of we'll do what we want because we set all the rules. Having this new statement of no drivers or team members are going to be able to make political or what was the other thing? Religious statements of any kind before or after the race or on the race property. That seems like a bad move and a bad look.
Oh, yeah.
And something that makes you look like Qatar, which had its own, human rights issues throughout this whole thing. You have got to be able to let your drivers say what they want at these races, even if it is on your turf.
Yeah, I think that trying to moderate or censor the content is a losing battle in most any sense. And I think the FIA is probably going to walk back on this, I think, in a bit. Or they're just not going to enforce it. Like, I just don't understand, where is the line, Do you not allow Pierre Gasly to cross himself as he gets in the car before he does his race?
Yeah,
Is that too religious?
Half of your grid is Catholic,
right? Yeah, I either it's not going to get enforced, or there's going to be so much about it that they're just going to have to walk it back. I just don't think you can do the content. I understand a business saying we want to be apolitical, but you can say we as the FIA are apolitical. Yeah. We are not going to make FIA-based statements.
We do it
like they did, what was it, we race as one thing, I think, back in 2020, which was, trying to stand with Lewis, but that really felt like that was coming from Formula One and the FIA. And so you could say, we as an organization aren't going to be political, but the drivers say whatever they want. And that kind of gives the drivers the freedom to be able to express themselves, and you're not really endorsing anybody.
The views for our drivers do not necessarily reflect the values of F1. I mean, we do that same disclaimer at the front end of any kind of news stuff or, the following is paid advertisement and does not reflect the views of this station or its sponsors.
So, I will see where that goes.
That's wild. Dan, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
coming
to you.
into 2023, and it's just going to be another year. And we're going to be able to do a full season now of F1. We got to sneak in about a half of a year, a half of the calendar of the podcast. And so it's been a fun one so far, and looking forward to next year and being able to cover it with you, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, same here.
All right, that does it for another episode of our F1 podcast, Mode Push. So much fun that we have on this thing. Mode Push, the podcast, brought to you by KSL Sports, KSL Podcast, and we're going to keep this thing going. So for Dan, I'm Alex. We'll see you next time, everybody.